Welcome back to Nurturing Birth, Nurturing Life, the space where we dive deep into all things parenthood, childbirth, and all the little tricky things in between. I'm Yayo, and today I have one of my favorite people who has helped me during my afterbirth process as a doula sister, and also is the TT to my girls. My sister, my doula sib, Quay.
Hi y'all, I'm Quay.
So, exciting news. I have my sister Quay on the podcast today simply because she is the baby whisperer. I consider her the baby whisperer. She knows all things postpartum, all things nanny, all things children, especially during those first 2 years of life. So, yes, sister, please go through your credentials so these people know who they playing with.
Okay, I'm Quay. I am a full spectrum doula. I started as a postpartum doula primarily, but I am now a CLC, placenta specialist, and part-time nanny for some special families.
So I asked Quay on to the podcast today because she was a very intricate and still very pivotal part of our lives. You cannot doula yourself, which is what I always tell folks. And during postpartum, I knew I was going to need some extra assistance outside of family. Thankfully, Quay and I ran in the same birth work circles. So I've had the pleasure of already knowing what she was about, her values, her beliefs, her morals, what she stood for, and who she was as a person outside of what we consider professionalism. I felt extremely comfortable with asking her to be a part of our care team. And her role in our care team was the postpartum period. To say that having her this time around, it was a stark difference from what I went through when I was pregnant with our oldest child. As we all know, the postpartum period is one of the most underserved periods. So, we will be covering some myths, facts, and we also will be clarifying misinformation that is out there in the world. There is a lot to discuss. Quay and I are both extremely passionate about our communities. So let's get started. I do want to start things off on the side of some misinformation. I'm just going to throw a slew of things at you.
Okay.
1, it's okay to be pregnant at your 6-week checkup. 2, you can get up moving around and within the first 2-3 days, back to cleaning, back to cooking. And also that postpartum is not forever. If you can just elaborate, first let's start with how can a postpartum doula help a new mother navigate, or a new parent navigate the first 6 weeks after birth?
Frankly, by making them sit their butts. That's the nice version. Sit their butts down. Like Gail mentioned about the getting up and moving around 2-3 days after giving birth to a whole human, because that's what you did. You gave birth to a whole human. Some people do it to multiple humans, right, at one time, and then to force your body to do all of the things that you were doing pre-pregnancy, pre-birth is just unkind to yourself. So I think a postpartum doula, especially in those first 6 weeks, which we can go into that later. Postpartum is way longer than 6 weeks. But just for those first 6 weeks, showing new parents and sometimes repeat parents how to slow down, take time for themselves, and kind of enjoy this new relationship that they're about to build with this new person in their household is really the goal of mine as a postpartum doula. Everyone may have their different goals, but my idea is just to make sure that you feel less overwhelmed and to reassure you. So in my practice, I kind of meet you where you're at. If I need to tell you to sit down more, drink water more, that's what we'll do. If you just need someone to protect your sleep, we can do that too. But I'm also going to give you little snippets and tell you it's normal for your baby to wake up every couple of hours. They're supposed to. And if you need a new perspective, here's one. Your baby wakes up and that fights them against SIDS, okay? There's like a chemical in their brain that wakes them up, and that you want that to happen. So I understand that our society may want babies to sleep 3-4 hours in the first couple of weeks and then, all night by a couple of months, but realistically, physiologically, they are supposed to wake up at night. It protects them and it keeps them alive.
I think that's a good point, sis, because a lot of people are so concerned with sleep training within those first 6 weeks. It's almost like as soon as the baby comes out, they're supposed to have this immediate schedule. And I just don't think that's practical. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more within those first 6 weeks? Like, as you said, there's a chemical in their brain that tells them to wake up within those first 2-3 hours. Like, what is the difference between a bottle-fed baby and a breastfed baby? Will those change, and how should parents move about those unrealistic expectations in the first 6 weeks?
This will overlap with some with my lactation profession and the knowledge I have there. Here's the thing, if your bottle-fed babies are sleeping longer stretchers in the first couple of weeks than a breastfed baby, one, breast milk digests easier. That's just a fact in the newborn's stomach and their digestive tract. So they digest it quicker, so then they'll wake up easier, right? So they'll wake up probably closer to the 2 hours, sometimes less than the 2 hours, right? We give these general average time frames. I want people to remember that babies will not follow those. They're humans, right? So that's a general time frame, but every 2 to 3 hours in the middle of the night, unless you have like a newborn or a late preterm, and then they're sleepy and you might have to rouse them to wake up and eat in the first couple hours. And again, you want them to wake up. We want that chemical to alert their brain, right? But for formula-fed babies, here's the thing, majority of them are overfed. When you're given formula in the hospital, y'all, they give you a 2-ounce bottle. And one of the biggest things, especially families who meet me prior to, so they do postpartum planning with me, I will usually give them education. A baby's stomach, when they come out, is 1/3 of an ounce. An ounce is 30 mLs. Their stomachs are 5 to 7 mLs. So that first day in the hospital and you're giving your baby formula, which is fine, that's your choice, but I want you to be informed, the 2-ounce bottle is not something that they should be striving to finish. And so if you're laying your baby back and then you're just sucked to swallow, right, they're keeping themselves alive. If they don't swallow, they'll choke. Right? So, but most of them are stretching their bellies way larger than they need to be, and then they're used to having their bellies stretched, and so every time you feed them, yes, they're going to finish it because that's what they're used to and that's what they've been given since birth.
Wow.
Right? So even with a formula-fed baby as a postpartum doula, I'm still very much a pace bottle feeding, right? So the bottle's probably going to be level with the floor, whether it's side laying or them just kind of upright in my hand. But I would say, in my experience for formula-fed babies, even with the ones who aren't overfed, they'll probably still wake up. Maybe they'll give you 30 minutes extra, so 2.5 hours, 3 hours, in those first couple of weeks. Like, again, they're supposed to eat, and especially in those first couple of weeks, they're growing so much that their stomach is also expanding. And then by the time they're a month, you'll get to where babies can do anywhere from 2 ounces to 4 ounces, right? And then of course we can go into that where breastfed babies may stay around that one, like TT's baby. And then formula-fed babies, because breast milk changes and formula doesn't actively, right, with saliva and stuff like that, obviously they need to go up in their calories. So then they'll go to like 6, 7, 8 ounces, where a breastfed baby will stay probably around anywhere from 4 to 6 ounces depending on the baby by the time they reach solids.
We all know that baby's quote-unquote schedule plays a huge part in the emotional recovery. How can a postpartum doula assist a new family, not just the birthing parent, through those emotional ways, through those ups and downs that come with postpartum? And that's extended beyond the 6 weeks, right?
For sure, because I think I've had a lot of my families actually have like a sigh of relief when I'm like, it's actually normal for you to like go through sleep woes, I guess, until at least 2 years, right? If you like study child development and their sleep, most kids up until 24 months, 2 years, will still wake up at least once in the middle of the night. Now we have great sleepers like TT's baby, and then we have like babies who are very normal and very average and will still do those night wake ups. So postpartum doula, myself, I can do protective sleep for both parents, or if you're a single parent, I can do protective sleep in that manner where I will wake up with the baby throughout the night. I will worry about the bottles. I will bring them to you if you breastfeed and then take them right back when you're done. And sometimes I also can teach you in ways to relieve you mentally, because a lot of people think it's their fault. We internalize it. I think parents in general will automatically do parental guilt and will be like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Why is this baby not sleeping for me? And that's usually not the case, right? So for a postpartum doula, I'm all about reassurance through education. So if I teach you natural sleep patterns, then you can take some of that guilt away. You can understand that it's not something that you're personally doing. And I can show you other ways that I can help you alter your schedule. So when I'm not there on the nights that I'm not there, maybe you guys sleep in schedules, right? Some people take the 4 and 4.
And that's what we did,
so you have protected sleep for each other. And then, of course, some people, whereas like the non-feeding, non-birth parent will wake up with the baby for everything else except feeding. And then they'll bring the baby to the other parent, to be fed. And if they're formula fed, then they'll probably just take over altogether, which, I mean, I agree with, because the other person, again, pushed a human out of their body. So,
I'm telling you.
Reparations.
So, would you agree that meeting with your intended postpartum doula well before you give birth is most beneficial, so that we can figure out, what are the goals? Like, what do we want to achieve? It's almost like a birth plan, right? Do we want formula or breast milk? If it's breast milk, then let me help you find the resources. Or do you want to baby wear? If so, let me make sure I show you how to do it safely. Are those all the things that you cover usually in your postpartum consultations, or detailing that plan?
Unfortunately, for my business personally, I have not had people who find me soon enough, because most people just don't understand or see the value in postpartum doulas and postpartum doula support until they're in the trenches. And then so most of the time I've started with families after the fact, right? After the fact, where they're like sleep deprived and they're like, oh, I thought I only needed this many hours, right? One of my families who I love and are very close to originally only booked me for 5 hours as part of a package with another doula, okay? 5 hours, and then I stayed until their kid was about 13, 14 months. So
I know what you're talking about.
Let's be clear that a lot of people just don't know what they don't know, right? And that's why I will say in my birth doula journey, I have been very forthgiving and forthcoming with the resources that I give my private families, because I'm like, listen, birth is great and the planning around it, wonderful, but there is a lot of things that you cannot plan for when it comes to birth. You have to be ready to adjust. Whereas the longest period of your life, which is postpartum, because it's forever, this baby's going to stay with you forever, right? And there's no planning done. I don't care if this is your 4th child or your 1st. There needs to be some type of planning. We make assumptions, but sometimes that's the biggest lead to disappointment in the postpartum period.
I agree.
And unnecessary arguments or tension between new parents and partners, because you think you may be on the same page. And to be very honest, the majority of us, when we become parents, we revert to how our parents parented us, right? And then most of us did not see how our parents parented us as babies, right? But that's the general consensus that usually happens. Yeah. So if you have very different parental backgrounds and upbringings, I think a conversation needs to be had. Even if they're similar backgrounds and upbringings, a conversation should be had. At the very least, I need to know, are you going to stick up for me when your mama come over and try to hold my baby? And I said no.
Oh my goodness. And I think that so many families need to take part and actively participate in that particular aspect of their pregnancy and the journey as a whole, because to find out while you're in the thick of it, on top of the emotions you may already be feeling. This is why a lot of families do not survive that first year or 2 years
after a baby.
After a baby, because the conversations were not had. You have to be aligned on raising. You have to be aligned on simple environmental factors. Where are we going to live? School zones and things like that. Like, these are all things that have to be touched on. They don't have to be talked about in depth at the beginning of pregnancy, but you guys need to at least have some common ground and be able to reach an agreement that satisfies the both of you. I know in our postpartum period, we didn't butt heads at all. My husband and I, Rashawn and I, we did not bump heads at all. He really trusted me, like, through the entire process. Like, he was just like, you're the doula.
I love that.
You're the doula. If this is what you say you need, then this is what we're going to do. And I knew I needed Quay. I did, because for my first postpartum period, it was insane. I didn't even know I had postpartum depression. It was my father who pointed it out to me that I may have had PPD. So I knew I did not want that to happen again. However, you can't control the emotions that come after pregnancy.
Not at all.
No matter if it's a month or 6 months after.
A year, 2 years.
Okay. But I knew that if I had someone outside of the situation by my side, then it would be easier to navigate this time. They would be able to point out certain things to me. Like, she pointed out when my milk output was slowing down, when there wasn't a lot of fat in my milk anymore. She was a keeper. She truly was a keeper. And I want every family to understand that once you make the decision to become pregnant and have a child, whether alone or as a family, the postpartum period is not something you can escape. The postpartum period is not something you can predict. You don't know what's going to happen. Shit, I've lost hair.
Oh yeah, postpartum hair loss is this thing.
Teeth.
Oh yes. Please, if y'all are pregnant, please go to the dentist.
Go to the dentist. But all of that to say, stop undervaluing postpartum doulas. Stop undervaluing nannies. Stop undervaluing people who are literally put here, I believe, because this is a labor of love, put here to ensure you and your family feel safe and are taken care of to the best of whatever resources we have can provide. So, I think this just might be a 2-part, because I do think there's some things that people are going to want us to come back and revisit. Yeah. I love to brag about this about my friend. She's a Caribbean gal, okay? And I just love it because it brought so much richness to our postpartum care. I mean, just the knowledge. And I love that because with my practice, I want it tailored more so towards natural remedies, and to actually be able now to say, I've tried it, I know it works. So here's a little nugget. I had high blood pressure, again, in postpartum. But it was, I wouldn't say in postpartum, it was literally right before I gave birth. About those last 3 weeks.
Yeah. My
blood pressure just skyrocketed out of nowhere. Hibiscus tea. She literally brought over the dehydrated leaves, was brewing it. She brewed it for me. She showed me where I can buy it from. What was the other tea you made me? Was it the Solio?
You're talking about sorrel. But sorrel is a version of like hibiscus tea. So sorrel is when, Caribbeans do hibiscus ginger specifically. Like, that's a specific tea for us, and then some people just call hibiscus sorrel leaves, right? So there's a difference, but just by what you put in it. So your postpartum tea, specifically for your high blood pressure, which can happen, you can get preeclampsia in postpartum, was specifically more correlated to your blood pressure. So hibiscus does help with your blood pressure for sure. But then you had extra stuff like molasses for iron. We did citrus, so it's usually grapefruit or oranges in there for a little bit of that. And then, of course, yes, ginger, cinnamon. Cinnamon is that warming aspect to make sure that your insides are warm. So please, if you are postpartum, wrap your feet. Walk on warm floor, something, please. Warm your body up. The United States has lied to us, okay? All the other countries do not treat us like this.
They don't.
When they give you a menu in the hospital and it's cold cut sandwiches, I be mad, okay?
Because what
I be mad. This? Where's the stew? Where's the soup? Where's the tea?
Keep the wound warm.
Okay, anyway. Tangent. But yes, so yeah. And then I brought it over and then I could just make it for you at home. It's pretty simple. You just steep it. And then, yes, of course, you can, like I said, hibiscus is good for it. I added extra stuff, of course, for other reasons. But as you get older and, well, further along in postpartum, you can definitely just make the hibiscus tea and then add some sweetener because hibiscus is a strong and bitter taste. So
it is.
Don't just make hibiscus and think it's okay. And then be like, Quay, none of this. Please water it down or put some agave, some honey, something, okay? But mixed with other things, it can be really, really helpful. And then it's like warming and sweet. And then I would prefer for if you're gonna make it, bake it warm, drink it warm in the first 6 weeks, and then after 6 weeks, if you would like it over some ice, go for it.
And I loved it. I started drinking it over ice. Because it was the sorrel, it was so good, so good. Like it was tailored to was.
Did I make you with rum?
You did not.
I didn't. Okay, sorry.
She said she make me some with rum.
Sorry.
Not yet. Not yet.
That's a Christmas treat. Okay, sorry.
I'm ready for that. Okay, the sidebar conversation on that one. Yes, so there are so many benefits to having a postpartum doula because they have a wealth of knowledge, such as what Quay just disclosed. You know, they are privy to some foods and nutrients that can target a lot of challenges that we face during postpartum, like lack of calcium, zinc. I mean, think of all the nutrients that our beautiful bundle of joy has now just stripped from our bodies. And it continues if you're breastfeeding. Okay, I breastfed for a full year. And right after that, just like my new haircut. That's all I gotta say. So Quay, I wanted to ask you, as a Black doula, what unique cultural considerations do you bring to your care that maybe other doulas don't?
I think, so being a part, if I'm a postpartum doula for a family like you, right, like our skin folk, usually that helps break down some of their walls, their vulnerability. They're more able to be vulnerable. Of course, most people, if they don't know you, will still have some type of closed offness, but there is this kind of literal like opening, I guess, in those walls because I look like them. And for the most part, I can understand some of their experiences, whether that had been in pregnancy, if they had difficult providers, or just living life in America in general, right? So that you don't have to re-explain. You don't have to feel like someone is looking at you like, are you just overreacting? Yeah. So some of that is nice, right? You can just have that. And for the most part, while the diaspora is widespread, there is a common ground, common understanding, because even if they're African American, right, like from Africa, Sudanese or whatever, Nigerian American or Caribbean American or Southern Black American, we have the Black experience of living in the United States. So that's one.
We do. Right,
and then for other families, I think sometimes it's kind of repeating history. We've always taken care of the other people's children in this country.
We have.
Right? So we raised America.
Wet nurses.
So I guess I'm just falling back into the role in a way, but also I'm being compensated.
With intent.
Very much.
Willfully.
Very much. Not yet. So, right. But it comes from a place of like, you understand that I know what I'm doing. There's trust there. And I think it helps the future generations because I'm exposing them to the other side, right? I'm exposing them to our culture, to my experience, right? I'm going to teach you about not pulling my hair as a toddler,
Yeah.
right? We're going to have certain familiarities with each other. I'm going to expose you to my music.
Mm-hmm.
Right, even if it's...
My baby loves some soca.
Yeah. Oh, well, we used to be dancing. We used to be... Listen. So, whether it's soca music, but even for shows, right? So, some families are, screen friendly, some are not, right? Even if it's for shows or music, like lullabies or kids songs. Snoop Dogg has a kids album.
He definitely does.
And I like the rhythm, so we gonna listen
cool.
to it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you my skin folk or not.
Postpartum planning and healing is not linear, and this is a conversation that needs to continue throughout the season. Please check back later as Quay and I continue the conversation on postpartum and how you can care for yourself in that season. If you made it this far, thank you.